Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you. I like you so much better now.
You like me so much better now.
Yeah, honestly, we spent years in conflict and it created some pretty big pain points for both of us.
Yeah.
And when we learned how to become safe inside of conversations, it brought down so many of my walls, and I like you so much more.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you're less difficult to deal with.
I mean, we both are better versions of ourselves. We could have written a book on how to not do conflict.
But here's the deal. We didn't write a book on how to not do it. We created a course called Connected Conflicts on how
to do it.
Yeah. One of the things is that conflict, I was filled with anxiety when it came to conflict. And I think it was high stakes for you as well, right?
Yes, because we didn't learn a map of successful conflict. We never saw it done well. We didn't see it modeled. We didn't have the tools, a practical guide. And so we have actually laid out for you practical steps of exactly what to do to create more safety in conversations and to be able to create more repair so that when you have confidence and you know what to do, you show up differently.
Yeah. And one of the things is that through taking Connected Conflicts, this conflict course that we've created, you're able to develop language and you can create shared language between you and someone else. I think that was one of the hard things for us is like, we were having conversations about things, but we weren't having the same conversation because we didn't understand a universal language. And once we developed a universal language, it actually began to be like, oh, this is so much easier. I'm not continually offended by the things you're saying because I know what they mean.
Yeah. So we want you to join us. Everybody has conflict conversations. Everyone goes through miscommunications, whether it's with your boss, your employees, your romantic partner, your parents, your kids. Like, there is no way to avoid miscommunication. So we might as well get great at communication. And so you can watch us. We'll share how to add safety. We'll give you a practical guide of exactly what to do and steps to do. And then we'll have you watch us do a couple live conflicts so you can see what it looks like in real time. People loved that.
They did. They were like, I think I'm getting some anxiety about this. And then they're like, oh, this went so well. Yeah. So anyways, if you guys want to get a hold of that new course, Connected Conflicts, you can go to Justin and Abby. That's abi.com/connected conflicts with an S. Without further ado, here's the episode.
Oh, gosh.
Y'all can hear the voice of another wonderful guest in the background. Her name is Gabby, not to be confused with Abby.
Oh,
and
I never thought of that.
Right?
No, Abby will just be saying two opinions today. Using slightly different voices.
Alter ego.
Gabby. Well, your alter ego is a little bit funnier than you. And
oh my God. Probably true. Here's the thing. I'm not even going to deny. Yeah, it is true.
It is.
But that's delightfully true because I like friends who are funny and you are funny.
You are. And I'm going to say something sexist that I've said to you before.
No, don't do it.
I'm gonna drop this bomb. I oftentimes find men to be more funny than women, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I
get
have
that.
never questioned that with Gabby.
Yep.
Gabby is funnier than most men that I know.
100%.
That is a lot of pressure going into someone listening to an hour conversation.
Yeah, but you don't have to be funny for this conversation.
No.
This is an emotional, connected conversation.
You
just be you.
Yeah, you can be your classic boring self
Yeah,
when you're not being funny.
Yeah, definitely.
So we've known Gabby for, I don't know how many years now, for a long time.
Enough.
I don't know.
Long enough.
Yeah.
We met her at a youth camp, actually.
Oh my God, I forgot.
I heard about her as like the all-star, very cool youth leader.
And I said, that'll
From
be
who?
From Tom. I love that you're like feeling so loved by this.
I literally should text him and be like, "Is that
You
what you
liked
thought
me?
of me?"
You really liked me?
I knew Tom loved me, but I didn't know he would like say that about me.
Yeah.
That's like the nicest thing. I love that so much.
I love that you got so lost in this story we're trying to introduce you with.
I know, it's just so nice.
Anyway, we met her at a church camp and then we became friends. She is absolutely wonderful. We love her so much. She's one of the few. At my 40th birthday, she wrote a song that was magical.
One of the most powerful songs I've heard someone write.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like it was studio quality, and that
Yeah.
wasn't just like giving you, just trying to like fluff you up or anything. But
Trey, my husband wrote it with me.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have to say that.
Yep.
Because he did such a good job.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been as powerful if it wouldn't have
The
been
two of you together.
the two of us together. I'm a good songwriter, but then he added just so much. So that was really fun.
It was magical. They're wonderful. And then Gabby she's in our school this year.
Yes.
She is a wife and a mom. And well, I was going to say a mom of, and then I was like, I don't know what number.
A mom of
some kids. One of the cutest boys and cutest girls that exist on the planet.
I would have to agree.
Yes. So where do you even want to start? Now I feel awkward. I just got lost in the introduction.
I mean, I was just complimenting her on being funny, and you add that to the world.
Great.
One of the things that I absolutely adore about you.
Oh, wait, maybe we should tell the audience what we're going to be talking about. So
Yeah.
we're talking about conflict, but really more than conflict, like how to keep connections strong, how to keep connections safe, and how to not just let the little things build up between you or let the little things create chaos or just slowly backing away. And Gabby has learned so much in her process of having, really it's not even about having conflict, it's about having a voice and learning how to interact with humans in a way that keeps love on.
And the reason I'm here is because I have historically been so bad at this that now that I'm actually kind of good,
Yes.
they're like, you should be on this podcast.
Yes, that's
Because
true.
it is a big deal how much I've grown in this area because I've had so much avoidance with this for so much of my life that now the fact that like
That you can even be talking
when
about
you
it.
texted me and asked me to talk about it, I was like, me? The person who's I feel like is like the worst at this. But I do know now that I've just grown so much in it. Mostly because of you guys. So
Okay, well,
I mean, gee whiz, you didn't have to say that. Yeah.
Is that what Tom really said? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so tell us, what were you like growing up with conflict, and what did that look like in relationships for you?
I mean, it basically looked like it was completely non-existent. So like my conflict map kind of, and what I learned from my parents was basically, I don't have like a single memory of them ever having a conflict. And then suddenly when they were having conflict, they were getting a divorce. So literally to me,
conflict is the worst.
Yeah, conflict was like irrevocable. Like it's like something is ending and you're never getting it back. And if you're not having conflict, it just means things are okay, things are fine.
Wow.
You can work your way into nobody being upset with you. You can be a good enough friend that nobody would ever explode at you because you can be good enough to make people not be crazy around you and not yell at you and not you
not
can
have
basically
miscommunications,
exactly,
and not have things you need to talk through. Like there is a way to be a good enough human that you never have to talk through things.
And like one of our family phrases, my dad would say, absorb offense. And that he said that a lot when I was a kid. So that was another kind of huge building block in my conflict map was literally like, you just absorb the things that you're hurt by, because at the end of the day, it's not really that big of a deal. And he was really big on empathy, which I'm very thankful for.
Sure.
But kind of what I learned from that as a kid was like, you have to understand they're going through something that's making them act that way.
And so it's fine. That
so it's
happening.
okay.
Yeah.
It's like, so they didn't mean it that way. They're going through a hard time. So when they said something mean to you, they didn't mean that. And so then it basically
so you can't
creates
have a voice about it.
So it's like, then it's like, well, then if like this, someone didn't mean that, then why would I ever bring something up that hurt me?
Right.
And I was kind of a doormat as a kid, which is funny to say. Like, I kind of realized like I was bullied as a kid, which I never would have acknowledged that until recently. But to me, it didn't seem like I was being bullied. It just seemed like this is the way friends treat you. Like, they're just like, they all kind of do things without you, and then you just like tag along and like run in. And they at a sleepover one time, they all like secretly like peed in a cup and then put apple juice in it and like gave it to me. Those kind of things. Yes. I didn't drink it, luckily, because no, I know.
Amazing.
So it ended up fine. So I never had to tell anyone about
And you were like, listen, they probably were just having a bad day.
Exactly.
And so they didn't mean anything bad.
Totally.
And so it's fine.
So it's fine. So it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So things like that, like I got roped into a lot of relationships that I didn't want to be in. I had friends that I didn't really like, but I felt obligated to be with them. And I was so passive all the time, and in so many of those relationships, that to them, they were like, I didn't know that anything was wrong. You just accepted the treatment.
Right. They're like, we thought you wanted to drink our pee.
Yeah.
Right. You just weren't fine.
Yeah. We thought you wanted us to pull down your pants when you're hanging on the bunk bed. And you know, it's like people like, I just accepted that, and I never would have said anything. And I kept being friends with them. And when they would come over to ask me to play with them, I kept saying yes. So to them, the only thing I was communicating was like, yeah, this is totally
This is fine. Wow.
And we can keep being in a relationship. And that's what relationships are.
Wow.
It's like people hurt you, but then you just get over it. And then you just keep being friends with them. Even though you really don't want to go play at their house.
Oh.
And then you would text your mom and be like, hey mom, I'm telling them that I'm feeling really sick. Please come get me. Oh. So you would never you would never go to their parents and be like, I really want to go home. I don't like this play date. You would lie to get out of it.
Totally. And I love what you just said about, because I did this for boundaries, was using my body was like the one thing you're allowed to use.
That was huge for me.
Which is, I don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to say no to you. I remember this friend of mine wanting to do something that I didn't want to do. She wanted to sneak out to this place and I didn't want to go. So I snuck out and told my mom, could you just sleep by the door tonight, Mom? And then I'll just tell her we can't sneak out because my mom's by the door.
And to her, she's gonna be like, what a normal situation. A mom sleeping by a door.
Well, there was a
recliner, she like have an
right
alcoholic
there.
Parent or something that'd be like, yeah, this is normal for her. She won't question it.
Well, here's the thing. It literally worked. My mom was like, sure. And my mom was not like, you know what? Why don't you just have a voice and say you don't want to?
Exactly.
There was never that thing of, and there's so many times that I played sick and not to get out of situations, because you are allowed to say no.
Yes.
If you don't feel good. And if you're not taught in your family that you're allowed to say no, you have to use your body to get out of things.
And I did. And up until very recently, I started realizing my body makes me sick to get out of things.
Yeah.
I suffer with a lot of nausea just randomly.
Mm-hmm.
And just recently I've realized like I get nauseous because that's my way of saying no.
Yeah.
That's my body's way of being like,
I don't want to do this.
We can get out of this. And
we can go home. We can go to bed. We can avoid the world because we're nauseous.
And I don't have to actually tell you, like, I just don't want to go to the party. I just don't want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
I can just be like, oh, I'm sick. So I used to cancel plans last minute so much.
That makes so much sense.
Because I was too tired to go. I was too sick to go. And really it was just like, I just didn't want to.
Yeah.
And it took me until the very last 15 minutes to build up the courage and be like,
say no.
I'm too sick, and to say no.
Yeah.
To things.
Absolutely.
So that was a huge, that was basically the way that I did conflict.
Yes.
Like it'll just never happen. And then
what would you do
enough.
internally with people? Like because I'm imagining if I'm friends with somebody, but they're doing things that are hurting me all the time, but I'm never saying anything, I would be like, buried inside of myself where they weren't actually knowing me.
Oh, I almost never felt like my friends knew me.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of relationships where people have said, this is my best friend. And I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, we are not best friends. Like, you don't know me at all.
Yeah.
And it was my doing because I wasn't being honest for so much of our friendship.
So good.
And so internally, I just started the slow back away where you're just like, and then you just kind of don't really answer text messages, or you wait a really long time. I'm a bad texter backer anyway, but oftentimes that can be, I should see that as a sign for like, oh,
I subconsciously
I'm
don't want to respond.
I don't want to
usually
respond.
just like thumbs up people?
Never.
Gabby confronted me on the thumbs up. We can talk about that later.
Nicely. But yeah, I backed away from people, and I also moved pretty frequently as a kid, so that really aided in my like, well, I just moved, so now I don't see that person,
so I can just get new friends.
Yeah, and I was great at making new friends,
right?
And I was also just great at just being distant from them. And then usually I would move before we needed to have some sort of like explosive conversation. So I never had an explosive,
wonderful
friendship because
I've moved over 200 times in my lifetime, but
I never had one's ever yelled at me. So, but yeah, I never had that because I wanted to avoid that.
Yeah.
And I think I attracted people that would maybe also would be okay with
would
me.
also want to avoid it.
Would also want to avoid it and would be okay with backing away slowly. Would just be like, well, some things just fade away.
Right.
And I did that so many times.
Yeah.
Just backing away from people.
So when did you start to change your mindset on that, or how did that process begin?
I feel so loved by being asked questions. I just have to say that.
I
couldn't stop.
So cute.
I couldn't help but crack a smile because I was like, this is so nice.
This is the best day ever.
I'm such a question asker.
Well,
So when someone's asking me, it's so nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say at the beginning of this, one thing I adore about you is your amazing ability to ask questions.
That's so
I always
nice.
feel loved by you because we usually ask questions.
Yep.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily get asked good questions.
Yeah.
Totally.
So it's when you have two question askers in a relationship, it's like just pure joy, and the conversation never ends.
I know. It's so good.
Yeah.
I love it. So I just wanted to say, because I could just feel the smile bubbling up. I was like, this is random to smile without explaining.
That's so cute.
And your question was when I started changing my moves. Okay, so it kind of started many years ago, probably about 6.
Yeah.
When I came to one of my mentors at the time, I was in 3rd year, and I was like, I think I'm realizing that like I don't have real friends. Like I have a lot of friends, but I don't have deep friendships. And I think I'm wondering why that is. So that was kind of the first like thing that really started shifting. Like I think I'm doing something that I don't want to be doing in relationship here. And so that kind of started this slow acknowledgement of me realizing I've stayed in relationships with people that I haven't been super excited to be in relationships with because I felt obligated, because I didn't want to bring something up, because for so many reasons. But the reason I got to the point where I didn't love being in a relationship anymore was because there was so much unresolved,
like so much built up
stuff.
So many
like
triggers.
No one wants to be in a relationship where there's like mountains of where you're keeping a literal record of wrongs in your heart, in your mind, in your body.
Totally.
It's not fun to be in connection with people.
No.
So that kind of started me on that path. Then and then it really wasn't until I think I'm trying to remember if we were friends. I think we were friends at that time. When I had been avoiding a really close friend of mine for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
Wow.
And she doesn't live in town.
So it was
easier. Easier to avoid because we just do phone calls and texts. But I could feel every time she would text or call me, I just had this like, oh no, I don't want to do this.
Yes.
And historically, I wanted to talk to her all the time. Like we were inseparable, best friends for a long time. And so that kind of pinged my attention for me realizing like, I think I need to address something here. Clearly I'm upset. And so then I think I probably had a conversation with you, but I actually don't specifically remember. But then I realized, then I could count like 4 friends who I had been doing that with. And then I realized like, oh, this is weird.
This is like a thing.
This is like something I do like in all of my relationships. This is not this person's problem.
Right.
Whoever's friend, whatever friend that is, that's not their problem.
Yeah.
This is something that I do repetitively and I have done for many years of my life. And so that was a huge breakthrough moment for me to just even acknowledge
to
that.
see it as a pattern.
To see it, yeah, and then to actually take ownership and realize like I am doing this and this is a problem and this will continue to drive me away from the people in my life that I really love and care about.
Yeah.
And actually that I would like to keep in my life. And so then I decided I was just going to tell all of them.
I'm bringing out the list, guys.
I'm kind of an all or nothing person. I'm realizing just like a couple days ago, I confronted also like 4 people in one day. I'm like, all right, let's go. We got to get all of the things fixed. So not mean confrontations,
No.
nice ones, you know. But anyway, so I confronted all of them. There was one person that I chose not to because I just decided it didn't feel, the relationship didn't feel worth fighting for anymore.
Yeah.
I was I think it's already dead. So I'm just going to let
it
that lie.
Let it go.
But these ones that I really care about continuing to keep in my life, I'm going to tell them, hey, I have been totally backing away from you and avoiding you. And I'm sure you can feel that from me. I don't want to admit that you can feel that, but you can. And so I just came to all of them and I just apologized and told them like, hey, these are like, let me just tell you the little offenses that I've had. And I know that you didn't mean anything by that, but to me, it hurt my feelings and I carried them. Didn't feel like it was a big enough deal to bring up. And so I never did. But now I'm sitting in the place where now, years into our friendship, I have never told you anything that's hurt my feelings.
Totally.
And now I'm at the point where I like every time you text me, I don't want to text back. I don't want to hang out with you.
I'm repulsed by you.
I'm I've repelled myself from you.
Right.
Yeah.
To the point where now I'm like, yeah, I actually am. I'm like
Avoidant.
I'm so avoidant of you. And so I came to all of them and they all just received it so well and were so thankful that I came to them because they all could feel that I was pulling away from them.
Yes, and they had no idea why.
And they didn't know
what was
why.
happening.
And to their credit also, none of them ever asked.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
So, but that's the thing is like, I wanted relationships like that. I actually wanted relationships where someone wouldn't ask me, why are you pulling away? What's going on? So
what a miracle that you
huge,
ended up being friends with me.
I know. Actually, it was because then in my relationship with you, I really did that a lot at the beginning of our relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
And I pulled away. I would
you'd
be
disappear
close
for like a couple months, and then you'd come back, and then you'd
and then you would be like, hey, you kind of feel like you're like disappearing. You kind of feel like I can feel like you pulled away. And I'd just say like, oh, I felt uncomfortable. I actually, to this day, I don't remember any of the moments of like why I would have felt like I wanted to pull away. I think it was just such a natural thing for me. I'm an avoidant attachment.
There were actually lots of things that you brought up.
But I don't remember what they were.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, they were, and I think this is part of the point is they were small things. It wasn't like, you run over my voice all of the time,
right.
you know, or it would be like, oh, I kind of felt like you were judging me for this thing. And I felt shame about it. So I just backed away. Or I kind of felt like you misunderstood this thing. So I just backed away. It would be things like that. And then we'd talk through it and it'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Also though, in the beginning of our relationship, I was trying, I take a long time to like suss out people.
Yeah. Do I trust them and what I feel about them?
Yeah. I'm a 6. So I have a wing 6.
Yeah.
So it takes me a long time to get to the point where I'm like, yes, we are officially deeply friends.
Totally.
And part of that is my avoidant attachment. And part of that is my non-conflict thing. But with you, I was really trying to figure out like, can I trust you? Where
Totally.
and so my brain was on high alert, looking for things to
what are the
distrust
things
about you
that will make her crazy?
Yeah, I actually like part of me wanted to find those things.
Yeah, that's
And-
what most of our students feel about us. Everybody, I literally have you. I'm looking for all of your flaws. Thank you.
Yeah, that's
I've got
gotta
a list. I
feel-
can give them to you.
That's gotta feel out of control sometimes. That everyone around you is just like,
It just
looked at me weird.
Totally. It's just what it is.
That's just part of it, I guess.
It's part of leadership.
But then being friends with you and Justin, it was first Abby, then slowly Justin. It really helped me start to go down the process of feeling like I could do conflict and confront things and feeling like it wasn't that big of a deal and that it's just a normal part of life.
Yeah.
Because to me, that wasn't a normal part of life.
Totally.
To me, something being wrong and you bringing it up was the end of a relationship.
Catastrophic.
It was deadly. And so to me, it was never normal.
Yeah.
And then you said this phrase, the best time to bring something up is when it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And that revolutionized the way that I thought about conflict.
Yeah.
Because to me, you only brought something up when
Once
you're
it's
like, I want a
ginormous.
divorce.
Yes.
I hate you. You're
You're the
scum,
worst.
You know?
Yes.
I only would bring things up when you couldn't, like when you're boiling over.
Mhm.
And now I'm realizing that's actually the worst time
Yes.
to bring something up, is hopefully you've been able to slowly do it. But that really shifted my perspective. So doing those little, like practicing, and then I practiced honestly with you guys.
You
Yeah.
did. Do you want to talk about practicing with me? How did that go for you the first time? That you
Horrible.
practiced?
No,
They're the worst. I'm here to tell you. When they say they're messy, they're messy.
and mean. No, it went so well. So there's been a few times I've confronted you. The first time ever, I think, was like, Justin's pretty sarcastic. For anyone that
Yes.
doesn't know,
He is.
if you've listened to this podcast, you probably know he's sarcastic. But at first in our relationship, that really hurt my feelings.
Mhm.
And I realized that like I was just slowly just backing away from you,
Like,
and
oh,
I
I
would
don't
get
wanna see
around
him.
you. Yeah, and I would get around you and feel really uncomfortable. I didn't know what to say. I felt rigid around you.
Yeah.
And so then finally, like probably, months and months into our relationship, I brought it up and was like, hey, just so you know, I have been totally backing away from you because I feel really hurt when you're sarcastic. And then after I said it,
You
now he
felt
can
relief.
say anything sarcastic.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, it's love to me. It's so funny. I actually look forward to seeing Justin so I can like emotionally berate him in a
Banter.
fun way.
Yes,
You know?
Totally.
Yeah.
And I love that. Well, sarcasm is one of my love languages. And a lot of people have been hurt by sarcasm. They've grown
Yeah.
up in environments where sarcasm is
was
something,
used to
it's
cut.
weaponized. It's like,
Oh,
I
was.
yeah, I have something inside of this that I'm trying to deliver to your doorstep without looking bad. So I'll, wrap it in a little bit of laughter. And I understand how that ends up being painful for people. I had a great relationship with guy friends where like there would be this synergy of like clowning, and we knew we really
Yes.
loved each other. And then you just it get funnier and funnier, right? And when I
Yeah,
when I
it
first
just gets more and more ridiculous.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I realized like when I was engaging you with my sarcasm, you would hit me back with it. And I could feel that same synergy of some of
Yeah.
my favorite people exchanges.
So then you probably got more sarcastic
yeah,
towards
like my
totally.
soul would just do
And
it. I'm
you,
not even.
like,
I'm not
she can
even.
take it.
and you probably felt like love towards
Well,
her.
yeah, it felt
For
like
it. Like you probably were like, because I remember you talking like you'd be excited to see her at an event
Absolutely.
because you'd be like, I can't wait to banter with Gabby.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's that sense
Yeah.
of feeling at home, right?
The camaraderie.
the camaraderie, the familiarity of that type
Yeah.
of play, because not everyone can do it or whatever. And so I'm like,
Totally.
it's not only, I usually won't serve it up with people, especially that won't serve it back. Because I'm like,
Totally.
well, this isn't going to land well, but your capacity to do that, I'm like, she's in, we're friends.
Yeah.
And
when
so you had no idea.
I had no idea
No,
that she's like plotting my murder in the back of her head.
Icicle. That's what I use. Not the way you
We can't find a murder weapon.
The evidence. That was fast. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
And so, for me, definitely it's interesting because in retrospect, I could feel something was off.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was. I wasn't quite aware of it. I had no idea it was that. And so when you did come to me, I'm like, oh, I felt something was off, but also what?
Yeah. That must have felt really confusing to you because I
thought we were best friends.
I have like a perfect personality for sarcasm and I actually love it.
Yeah.
Some of my closest girlfriends, like that is what makes us close.
Totally.
Is just like, is being sarcastic with each other. And I love that. And I grew up in a very sarcastic family. So I love that. But there was a double-edged sword to it.
Yeah.
Because my dad really used it to communicate his hurt towards my mom in front of us.
Wow.
Yeah,
so,
that makes so much sense.
For
also,
me,
even specifically men doing it to women probably felt degrading.
Right. And that was a way for a long time how the only way I knew how to relate to men was just like, let's be sarcastic, and that was okay. But I think because I had watched you from a distance as a leader for a long time, I had to listen to your podcast. So then coming into a relationship with you, I think I had you in this father place.
Yeah.
So then when you were being sarcastic, it was bringing up a lot of
You're like,
father.
Daddy!
A lot of roots, Daddy. You hate my mom. You know, you're gonna divorce her.
Well, and they did no conflict but sarcasm.
Yeah.
So that was probably the only way you even felt anything.
That was like the only I never knew something was wrong until I had a couple of memories of my dad being sarcastic with my mom and my mom just shutting down.
Yeah.
And it's actually so sad to think about because there was no one to stand up for my mom because we were all just kids.
Right.
We just went along with it with my dad.
Totally.
But so in that scenario, it brought up a lot of hurt.
Totally.
But now that we've talked about it, I don't feel hurt at all.
Yeah.
And I actually love that. I felt loved that you didn't that you didn't stop being sarcastic with me after I said that. Because part of me was scared, like, are we going to lose our funniness?
I definitely approached it slowly because I was like, I'll step back into the pool slowly, work my way to the deep end here on this. Because what I wanted, like, when you brought it to my attention, it's like, I never want someone to actually be hurt by the way that I'm playing,
totally.
And I know I've made messes by making jokes because I'll joke outlandishly and I don't mean any of it, but then someone's like, oh, you meant that. I'm like, oh, I never want that to be the case.
Totally.
So then when it really got brought to me, I was like, oh, this matters to me.
Yeah. And now if she would have asked you to not do it, would you have stopped?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, it would have been like, I just don't bring sarcasm into that. I'll find a different way to relate to you. But I valued, like, the more that you were coming to me to have little conversations like that, I was like, oh, I can actually trust Gabby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she's, again, not secretly holding something against me.
Well, now I'm realizing how big of a trust builder someone coming to you and saying something that they're hurt by is, because now that I'm more connected with my humanity and the fact that, like, we all have difficult feelings inside of us, and we all can create destructive things anywhere we go.
Yeah.
Now the more that I'm realizing that, I'm like, oh, it's so inevitable that someone will be hurt or upset. So the only way forward is that we bring things up.
Yes.
Or else we just
disconnect.
That is the only option, is to disconnect if you're not bringing things up, which I would have never said that a few years ago.
Yeah.
I just would have thought, like, no, you just don't. No, you just get over it.
You just absorb the offense.
You absorb the offense and you never say anything.
I think one of the big turning points for me is when I realized that conflict is inevitable. Like, I think I didn't subconsciously think you could avoid it and never do it, but I did think if I become a really good communicator. I remember when I was a teenager feeling so misunderstood so often by people, and I just thought it's my fault. I don't know how to say things right. I don't know how to communicate it well. I communicated using too many feelings words, or I just need to communicate better. Instead of that conclusion, I think was wrong. I think the conclusion is there'll always be misunderstandings.
Yes.
It's inevitable there's no way to understand everything because me and you have different definitions to words, and we have different histories, and we have different stories of how sarcasm was in my childhood is different than sarcasm was in your childhood. There is no universal, we all understand that this means exactly this. And so there's no way to feel fully understood without having to do the communication dance of, oh, I don't know that you're getting it, or I'm feeling misunderstood because of this. And just that ability to start to bring those things up and into the light where they can be talked about, and where like that is the glue of relationship. Like relationships are strong when you can talk about the things going on inside in the relationship dynamic. When you can talk about, I felt misunderstood, or I could feel myself pulling away, or I felt like my feelings were hurt, even though I understand your intentions were good. I still felt that. When we can actually communicate those little things, it starts to create a lot of synergy, connection, trust. I remember with you, I actually didn't trust you very much when we met because you were so avoidant.
Yeah.
And
I really was.
And I think one of the greatest pains to me is feeling like I'm really like feeling like everything's good in a relationship and then somebody just cutting it and ending. To me, that is one of the most devastating experiences as a human, is like, I'm loving you and I'm giving my whole heart to you, and all of a sudden you're done. And I don't know why. Or you're slowly getting, like, I feel so powerless when someone's slowly moving away and I have no idea. I'm pretty comfortable if we decide to slowly move away because we just decide we're not we're not compatible. But if I have no idea,
an avoidant person would not have that conversation.
No, they wouldn't. And so I've been really hurt by people just ending things.
Yeah.
And building, like, what's so sad is when there's something that has been building for like 2 years. And you're like, I had a friend that constantly would tell me things like a year late of things that I'd been doing that was bothering her. And the feeling in my body is like, I would have wanted to change.
Yeah.
I would have wanted to meet you there. Like, that's not what I meant by that. I could have found other words to use, or I could have been like warmer when this thing happened, or like, there were so many things that I would have wanted. The feeling of wanting to love my friends well, but not being able to when I don't have the information. I don't know what makes you feel unloved. I don't know if you're not feeling unloved. I don't know if you feel misunderstood. I can't make sure that our connection stays strong. And I do actually care about my friends. I want them to feel loved, but my intentions don't matter at all if I don't get the feedback and the information. So it was funny because you were learning to have a voice and you were terrified every time you'd bring things up.
Oh God.
You were
hated
so
it
scared.
so much.
And every time you brought things up, I was like, okay, she's somebody that I could do relationship with. Like, I actually felt safer and every time you brought things up. And to me,
can I share my perspective of every time I brought something up to you, the voice in my head and the story I was believing was, this is going to continue to push Abby away from me. This is going to give Abby evidence that I am not trustworthy, that I am too broken, that she needs to disconnect from me. So for me, exposing like that I am human and that I am weak and that I am hurt and fragile would make you move away. So so every time I would just cringe at the like physical body shaking at the idea of bringing something up to you.
Yes.
Because to me, it meant like, this is literally, I'm giving you evidence for why you shouldn't be friends with me anymore.
Right.
And that wasn't at all what you were getting.
No.
Which now is I'm understanding.
Well, and the beautiful thing is, and then I know
I was just going to say that makes sense. That'd be terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Like the repercussions of that behavior are total annihilation of a relationship and a stamp that says you are totally broken.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of us have shame about bringing up little things. We have this idea we have to either have a case built that's solid, or you have to do something big enough that it's fine for me to bring it up. Like, it's almost like, I imagine it like there's a scale 0 to 10, and we think anything 8 and above, we're allowed to talk about.
Right. Affairs.
Yes.
Killing someone. Running over my dog.
Yes, totally.
Like, you should bring that up.
Yeah. 100%. You stole my car. So I'm going to bring it up. But like anything that's like 2 to 6 level, you never talk about, because you think that makes you look insecure, or you think that makes you look needy.
Yeah.
And so, but the funny thing is, every time you brought up stuff that you're like, this isn't a big deal, but I know that it's coming up, I would literally think, this is so easy for us to overcome.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, great. Like it still did feel small because it was a 2 to a 6. And that felt like, oh, yeah, we can totally talk through this and we can make it to the other side. That feels easy.
Yeah.
What actually feels harder is like the friend I had who'd bring things up after a year because there was such a big gap now between me and her that I couldn't see a way back.
Right.
Like I was like, I don't know how, like you're saying that there's 10 times that I said this thing that I meant differently than how you heard it.
Right.
But now you are a mile away in your heart.
Yeah.
And even if I apologize for the 10 times, you're still a mile away, just maybe a foot closer. And so with you, it was like, oh, these little things you're bringing up is you're a foot away.
Yeah.
And we can talk through it and we can step right back.
Totally.
Yeah.
I was going to
I
say,
love that.
one thing is that these conversations that are low stakes and lead to quick repair are what create emotional or relational resiliency.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Relational resiliency is created in the small conversations that are not high stakes, and they cause us to actually draw closer to each other. And we realize we can get through this, because if we can get through all these little cuts, we get to some weird big cut that does come up, we already know that we've been working through a process of trust and understanding one another and learning how to forgive. So, I mean, this is vital to having a healthy connection.
Yeah. No, it is.
Okay, so you start practicing and growing. How does the process of growing in conflict look like for you inside your marriage?
Oh, that's a very good question.
I know that you shared the other day in class. So Gabby's in her first year.
Oh, that's
and
a good
she
one.
shared the other day about a revelation that she had in her marriage, which I thought was so huge. And so maybe that'd be a good place to start.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so Trey is my husband. We have had a recurring horrible conversation about money. I'm sure many of you can relate.
100%.
Because money just brings up so much pain for a lot of different reasons. And for me, talking about money, dealing with money, looking at money, buying groceries, checking my bank account, has brought up so many painful feelings for me.
Absolutely.
So much just feeling of powerlessness, panic, I'm never going to be okay, no one's going to take care of me, I'm a little kid, all those types of things. So every time we talked about money, I was bringing that unrelenting, huge, horrible energy into our conversations. And
that like panic, I need someone to help me with this. I'm never going to be okay. We're never going to have enough.
Yes.
Like this huge, like ball of emotion about money.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I'm bringing in this huge ball of emotion that is basically also me feeling like a little kid. Like I just feel so powerless to this. I feel so small. I feel like I can't do anything. I feel so inadequate. I have so much shame and regret. And this was an area of my life that I was constantly keeping record of all of our wrongs, all of the things that I thought we had done badly, we should have done differently. And every time we would talk about money, I would bring all of these things
the
up
failures
again.
we've done.
Be like, but then there was one time with that car. And then there was the other time with another car. And then there was the one time with that credit card and the house renovation. So I would just bring up all these things. And to Trey, he was experiencing me in these conversations like I was kind of crazy. And also I was very, very blamey towards him.
Yes.
I was really
Right.
villainizing him.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually deep down, I actually wanted him to also lament our mistakes
As
because-
much as you.
as much as I was, because in my heart and mind, I thought this is the only way we're ever going to change
If
is
we
to
punish
feel
ourselves
horrible about it.
Yes.
And to hate ourselves and to never forgive ourselves and to just keep all of our mistakes present
right
in our mind.
in front of us.
Right in front of us. So because I didn't want to forget the things I had
Right.
done
Yeah.
because I was afraid then I would never change.
Yeah.
So I was going into these conversations wanting Trey to feel as ashamed as I did. So I was also shaming him. It sounds so funny to admit these things, but it's just what we all do. We all just do
We
this.
love to blame, and we love to people pull it into the misery with us.
Yes, and I
Yes.
wanted him to be as like I wanted him to suffer as much as I did.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think we could ever get better. And so, anyway, these conversations, have been going on for 6 years for our marriage. And finally, like a couple months ago, we had another conversation. I brought something up. I don't remember how it started, but I brought something up and I just start going into another one of my just spirally like, oh, we're so lost. We're never going to get out of this hole. There's no hope.
Yep.
We've ruined things too much. That is how I felt in this conversation.
Which I would describe as like an emotional flashback.
A huge
because
emotional flashback.
I wanted to say that because you guys are not, I know your finances and you are not that bad. So just for the listeners listening, they don't know that you sound like you've gone through
like we're gambling millions a year away.
Gone through 3 bankruptcies.
Yeah, we're crashing cars into trees for fun. For that we have car payments for. It's really not that bad. That's kind of the thing is like it's actually not.
Which, by the way, this type of unloading, like I've been on the other end of some of that.
No.
Every person can relate to this.
Yes.
To this, like someone has unloaded on me about a subject and it's happened over and over again. And I feel so powerless when they do it and I don't know how to make it stop.
Totally.
Yes. And I, for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the weight of the entire world dumped in 1 second.
Yeah.
And then you feel like you're drowning. And then especially if you feel blamed or anything, it is a very miserable experience to be on the other side of that.
I see you over there feeling really validated by Gabby talking about her conversation with Trey.
Yeah.
Is there something that you want to confront me about in this conversation?
Let's talk about this, Abby.
Like, I really do feel like
Gabby and I thought we'd bring this up. This episode was about you.
Here's the truth. That is what you're talking about. It is so human. When I kind of the way I would describe it is when I got married, there's lots of things where I'd fall into an emotional pit.
Yeah.
And I would be, what I wanted from Justin is that he would either pull me out of the pit or get in the pit with me. And so
that is the perfect way to explain it. Yes.
Pulling me out of the pit is like, I'm fine. We're going to be fine. Here are all the answers. I'm not even threatened by all the panic you're feeling. We've got this. And here's how we're going to do it. Like, I want you to be like a parent / God / a superhero who's like, like no kryptonite. Like that's the one who pulls me out of the pit. Or I want you in the pit with me being like, yeah, wow, it is dark down here. There is no hope. We're screwed. Yes. Like,
wow, there are snakes and threats.
Yes. Well, here's like when you would go into those spirals as a side note, I mean, we might as well crack this one open real quick.
Yeah.
But when you would go into those spirals, the imagery that I'd always have often is I would see a crab boiling pot and the crab trying to get out. And I was the one cooking, like almost like the cook outside the crab. And the crab would be like, I'm dragging you in, or I want you to pull me out. Like when you're talking about that, I was like, that's what it's felt like. I'm like, you just want me in the pot with you. Get away.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't take it. I can't go there. Why do you want me to go there so bad? Yeah.
Yeah. Emotionally, I think, so basically I would go back to my little kid on the inside.
That's exactly what I did.
And I really needed a parent to help me regulate my unregulated emotions.
Yeah.
And then when Justin couldn't parent me, because that's not his role, and also he didn't understand emotional regulation back then, and neither did I.
Most married people or people in general
are still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so when he couldn't parent me, I would then turn on him.
Oh, 100%.
I'd be so mad at him for not understanding, for not being able to save me.
Yeah.
Like I really wanted him to save me. So I just can relate to the feeling that you're talking about.
Well, that's exactly what I wanted. I came into every single conversation and my little kid wanted to be parented.
Yeah, be my dad.
Yeah, I wanted him to be my dad. And exactly what you're saying. I wanted him to be this invincible, perfect, Jesus-like God figure who was never, ever disrupted by my pain, or who would also lament with me. And he obviously can never offer that.
Totally.
Because he's not perfect.
No.
And so then I felt really angry for like, why can't you just why can't you just hear what I have to say and like not get
Be
so
affected
upset at
at
me?
all.
Yeah. And so finally, 6 years into marriage, he told me like, we can't talk about this anymore, which to me, I was like, is that even allowed? Like, how can you say we can't talk about money?
Yeah.
Like, this is like should be a number one every morning should start our day kind of conversation. And so then he set that boundary, and I was so hurt by him saying that. And I tried to just feel like, you know what? This is going to be okay. Eventually, we're going to get to the place where I can be regulated enough for us to talk about this, and it's going to go okay. And then in a conflict session with you guys, I had all these revelations about like, wow, I want Trey to be my dad. I need him to be perfect and save me or get in the pit with me. And then from there, it's been so much easier. And now we've had a ton of breakthrough in our ability to talk about money, and even in just my relationship towards money. It's felt so much easier recently to just handle all of that.
I love that.
After I've realized like, oh, I want you to save me, and you're never going to save me.
Right. The acceptance of like knowing what is, and the acceptance of what he's capable of
Totally
completely deflates the intensity of
One thing that I want to add, because I've watched you do this in your process, is not only have you chosen to be very brave and face fears, which is one element of this process that's necessary, is risk taking, right?
Yeah.
There's been and truth telling. That's been an aspect, but then there's the ownership aspect.
Yeah.
And you have
You're
been
so good at that.
I am good at that now.
so good. Yeah. You've become fantastic at it, because I watch you even tell the story like, yep, I did this. This is crazy. This is wild that I did this. This was messy.
But also with compassion, like
total compassion on yourself, but being able to just like step out of shame and just into like, I'm just gonna own this. This is what the matter of fact, I have done this. Yeah. And be able to laugh it off at some level.
Totally.
You know?
You guys have really helped me break away from what I do is what I am.
Yes.
And the shame of that. And growing in compassion towards myself and towards Trey. And Trey felt so loved when I came to him and was like, I realized these conversations would be horrible for you. He actually started tearing up.
I was gonna say, I bet he teared up.
He did, because to him, it had been so many years of me blaming him so much and like berating him with our money conversations. Yeah. That to hear me say like, you must hate talking about this. Like, I can understand why you would never want to talk about this again. And it makes sense that you set that boundary, and that's okay that you said that. And I hope we can get to the place where we talk about this one day. But it was so meaningful, but I wouldn't have gotten there if I wouldn't have had compassion for myself and then also been able to have compassion for him too. Yeah,
because another element in this, I talked earlier about relational resilience, but then there's the personal emotional resilience, which is something that you've been developing inside of your process. Is like, I can actually face these emotions. We talked in another podcast maybe a little bit about intolerable emotions we do not want to feel.
I have a lot
of
those.
So do I. So does every human.
We all do.
Yep.
And there's these aspects of you facing these specific intolerable emotions inside of yourself that has built this emotional resilience that says, I'm going to be okay to look at this. I'm going to be okay to have to feel this and face this. And so I think that that's been profound in your process.
Yeah, even in this podcast, talking through like, it was intolerable for you to bring up emotions to people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was intolerable for you to have a voice about things. And then for being avoidant, you've actually faced so much of the things that you've been avoiding. And a lot of times when we face what we've been avoiding is where we gain confidence. When we face what we've been avoiding is when we gain resilience and we start to be like, oh, I can do this. Oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
And then you start to feel powerful and it just creates momentum. I think when we face what we have been trying to not look at, it begins to inspire momentum everywhere in our life. And I love that about you. So one thing I just wanted to, as we're getting close to wrapping up, we have so many things we could talk about, but you have been a student in our school. You just listened to, because we're about to release the series that we did. What is it called? Good Connection or
Connected Conflict?
Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm. Connected Conflict.
Connected Conflict. What's the tagline? Something.
Creating safer relationships.
Creating safer relationships. That's what it's called. Connected Conflict, creating safer relationships. You just were at it. It was a live event for school. Do you want to talk about what it was like for you?
Sure. I love being in school with you guys, and I did not like the conflict conference. Just because I've been so avoidant of it that every time there would be another session, I'd be like, oh my God, please, how much more can we talk about this? Like, this has got to come to an end sometime. So that was like my reaction to it.
But the story with Trey came from that.
But but I genuinely did experience connection and safety in my own relationship. So check. It was uncomfortable to me to learn about it, but it was really helpful because I didn't really have any framework for how to do this other than literally just trial and error.
Right.
So, I mean, that was probably some of my biggest takeaways were not having conflict when you're dysregulated.
Yes.
Which to me, I had only ever known that is when you bring something up. It's because you're yelling, you're boiling over, and then you said it. So that was a huge takeaway. And then having a lot of compassion for the other person was a huge takeaway. Yeah.
I love that.
Those were my biggest takeaways.
Yeah. And I think for us, one of the things that's most important in the series is that I can have compassion for you and still
and for myself.
Say that my experience matters.
Yes.
Which is very similar to having it for myself. Because I was listening to you, like when you grew up, you could have compassion for the other people, but you didn't know how to have compassion for you or decide that how they impacted you, even if they didn't mean to hurt you.
Well, and we talked about in the connected conflict, the idea that both of our experiences matter, right? And that's really what we're talking about, is like both of these experiences can matter, and they both can we can both be coming from a different perspective.
Totally.
And we don't necessarily have to have had the same experience to say like, okay, you matter, I matter, and we can resolve this.
Yeah.
Can I just say one last thing on a takeaway on that was the idea that there's kind of like three truths in a conflict. There's like what I think happened, what you think happened, what actually happened.
Yes.
Because we're all bringing in so many different perspectives. And that was a huge thing for me to realize. It's like, it's just never about being right.
Yeah.
And being able to hear someone say, that is what I experienced. And that was true for me because of my history. And that's what you experienced. That was true for you because of your history.
Yeah.
Was huge for me too. And just realizing like that that's not always the full picture. And if someone's saying something in a huge dysregulated state, that's not always the full picture.
Totally.
Right.
Me saying something in a dysregulated state is not the full picture. Them saying it is not the full picture.
Yes.
You're saying that just because I'm freaking out and being like, hey, we're terrible and this all happened to me, doesn't mean that that's the full picture of the reality.
And it's changed the way that I hear people when they're venting about something too. Because I have kind of that little like, oh, that isn't fully everything that happened. Like we look at things so differently when we're triggered and upset.
Yeah, our brains,
and it's just good to acknowledge that.
Our brains literally gather information different when we're triggered and dysregulated than they do when we are regulated. And so it's important to know. And most of us have not been taught, because we avoid conflict just like you at all costs.
Yeah.
We only have it when we're at that 7 to 10 or 6 to 10.
We only have it when we've decided someone is a 8 to 10 place. It doesn't even have to be there. We've built a case enough in our head and made them out to be the villain. We only have it then.
It could have been 10-2 moments.
Yeah.
That were like, this was a level 2 pain, but it was 10 times.
Yes.
So now it's a level 10 pain.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you're a level 10 villain.
Yeah. Level 10, even though you're my mom.
It's so true. Yeah. So it's I think for me, learning how to, I was just thinking today, there's a conversation that I need to have with somebody, but I'm literally waiting until my brain is in the green zone again. Where I'm regulated so that I can see and remember what I value and love as we do it. But
that sounds like we'll have a good conflict.
That's nice. That's nice. But one thing I do want to say is, and because you've learned so much about blame and ownership, when you've had the conversations with people. Like, I know for me, I haven't felt attacked.
Oh, that's
when
so
you've
great
been
to
able
hear.
to bring it up. And so
I
I
haven't
think
either.
that
Justin probably has. I've attacked him.
and so I think that it's beautiful. And I just want to challenge you, if you're listening, that this is the time to go have the 4 conversations with the people that you need to do. And start it off with, I want our connection. I care about our connection enough to want to face this stuff and not let it get in between us. I care enough about our relationship that I don't want to build any walls. Yeah. And so I know that your intentions were probably really good.
Totally.
But this is where I can tell that I'm building a wall here, or when this happened, I shut down a little bit, or just being able, this is your time to go get that. Also, if you need help, you need practical skills. We actually practically go through, this is exactly how you can bring things up, how to create safety in conversations. A lot of what we do in this course is about how to add safety.
Yeah.
Right. That was huge. Yeah.
So many people don't have safety in conflict, and they don't know how to create safety, and they don't know how to have a conversation where they can be heard and understood, or where the other person, and it's actually, there's some really easy things that you can do to do that. So if you're interested in that, you can go to justinandabby.com/courses, connected conflict. LCMC is coming up.
You can leave us a message on the website, and
LCMC is our year-long school. Gabby's in it. If you're like, wow, she's so articulate, and
it was
she's
all Abi and
so smart, and I want to be just like her, then come to LCMC. That's how we're going to sell it.
It is amazing. It is so good.
Thank you.
Well, if you haven't done it yet, you should go ahead and hit the subscribe button on YouTube, and go ahead and hit the little bell. So every time we do launch an episode, it goes ahead and it rings and dings on your computer. Lets you know, here we are at your doorstep.
Here we are.
Remember to share this stuff when you're impacted by this stuff, and you share it. It's you sharing it that actually gets the word out. It's how it's promoted, and it's how we find a way to impact people with this kind of information.
There's so many times we've had whole families, like multi-generational families, get healing and wholeness, and it's because somebody shared the podcast with one person, and then it spread. So it's amazing what a little share can do.
Well, is there anything that you want to confront me on as we end this podcast?
Don't love your shirt, but
I mean, that hurt.
No, there's nothing else.
Don't love your shirt.
I've emptied my.
Not sure why you decided to wear that on a podcast.
I feel way more connected after saying that, Justin.
And on that note, goodbye.
Bye.